And then there was one. Another loss ensures that Hawaii's hopes of avoiding a winless season will come down to the final week. Aloha and welcome into another edition of Rainbow Warriors Inside the Huddle. I'm Mike Cherry. Speaking of intensity, this was another overtime game, the second week in a row. Let's show you how it all went down in our opening drive. We head up to War Memorial Stadium in Laramie. The temperature by Hawaii standards, pretty cold, 25 degrees, but by Wyoming standards, it was just fine. Things begin promising enough for UH. Opening drive, Sean Schroeder finds Scott Harding, who makes a great catch for a 44-yard gain. A couple of plays later, and it's Joey Iosefa pounding his way in for 6. UH scores on their opening drive for the first time this year. But the Cowboys would waste no time responding, reeling off a 15-play, 77-yard drive for the first touchdown pass of Brett Smith's day. Wyoming, though, they would muff the PAT, so UH leads 7-6. Next Cowboy drive, Smith, he gets a shot, but gets off a perfect pass. Robert Heron hauls it in. Wyoming takes a 13-7 lead. Rich, how did he get so open?
Well, you're going to see the wheel route by Wyoming is an awesome concept offensively, but you're going to see poor technique by the DB, Daniel Masafilo, a converted wide receiver. He widens his base, he reaches with the wrong hand, and the result is a touchdown.
Yeah, well, Schroeder would respond. This time he finds a wide-open Chris Gant for a 34-yard score. Defense pretty much optional in this one. Both teams combined for 357 total yards. UH led after one, 14-13. Again, like you said, it's anyone's game, so let's get to the third. Things taking a turn for the strange. Scott Harding on to punt. The rugby kick is low, eventually bouncing off the heel of a Wyoming player. Hawaii recovers. Rich, could that have been strategically kicked low?
There's no question. Scott Harding is a weapon of mass destruction. He is the best punter in the country. When you look at net yardage, when you look at the fact that he has not punted any in the end zone, no touchbacks, and he's had 4 of these now. So this is a great weapon, and again, he could be up for the MVP of this whole season.
Absolutely. Well, UH pretty much gains 29 yards of field position. 3 plays later, Schroeder again for the third time. This from 29 yards out. Hawaii takes a 42-35 lead. Now, there were some defensive moments by both sides in this quarter, but let's face it, offense ruled the day. 2 Wyoming possessions later, the Cowboys marched 61 yards on 14 plays, capped off by a feathery touch from Smith to Heron for the 3rd time, and we are knotted up heading into the 4th. All right, well, let's take a look inside the numbers. Both teams combined for more than 1,400 yards of offense. Wyoming set a new UH opponent record with 793 total yards. Rich, these numbers have to be a nightmare to a defensive guy like yourself.
No question. These are Arena Football League type of statistics.
Now, of course, the standout moment is the overtime period. Let's touch back on that real quickly. Joey Iosefa, he gets 6 straight handoffs. 6 straight. That's it. They ran 6 plays. Is that the right call?
Well, you know, it's easy to sit here as a Monday morning quarterback and second-guess the play calling because, again, Joey's averaging 5 yards. He's the workhorse. That guy is a big-time football player, but you'd like to see a little bit more diversity in the play calling, and obviously it wasn't successful, so they'll be second-guessing themselves. There are so many holes to plug now that you hope psychologically that these guys can get up for their last game against Army.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can't start pointing fingers, right, or else you have a handful coming right back at you. Speaking of which, we got a lot more show to point out, including we'll break down our key play of the game and look ahead to the final game of the season against Army. Welcome back. You know, in a game that featured more than 1,400 yards of offense and 16 touchdowns, it might be hard to believe that defense played any sort of role in Saturday's game, but it did. Unfortunately for the Bows, our key play of the game didn't go their way.
4th and 1. It's Iosefa, and he's tripped up. He's not going to get there. Wow, what a play. The Cowboy defense has stiffened, and Hawaii does not score.
Now, we talked a lot earlier about what Hawaii should have done in overtime, but Rich, tell me what the Cowboys did right on this play.
Well, what they did, they went to 4 cross man, which is called zero coverage, but more importantly, they slanted in all the inside gaps, A gap, B gap, C gaps, and they came off the edges. You're going to see right here, coming off both edges, and they're able to stop Joey before he gets back to the line of scrimmage. So the penetration, the outside blitzing scheme worked perfectly because if Schroeder pulls this ball, it's a touchdown for Hawaii. But a lot of times you got to get gamble that it's going to be an inside run, and sure enough it was. Great play by the Wyoming defense.
Now, we touched on the night that Wyoming quarterback Brett Smith had, which was just phenomenal. I mean, 7 touchdown passes, 489 total yards, but a lot of what he set up in the air came because the guy can just run. Rich, natural ability aside, how do you find success?
Well, you're going to see a 3-man front, and that's because Hawaii's defensive line is thinned out due to injuries. So the 3-3-5 will allow some inside opportunities as well as some stuff on the perimeter. And this kid can run. Now, you don't see the defensive back from Hawaii making up any ground, so he has some jets, and he covers some ground.
Yeah, absolutely. He had 2 runs of 50 yards or longer. And then what we're going to see coming up, Smith topping off that touchdown with style points in terms of a 2-point conversion. Rich, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, this is a heck of a play in terms of the Ian Johnson Boise State against Oklahoma Statue of Liberty fake.
Look at that.
And then you're going to see the play action. Great way to dial up a trick play for the 2-point. Everybody always asks, what is your 2-point play? This one is a special one.
Yeah, Wyoming, they had 5 touchdown drives that lasted 71 seconds or less. I mean, that again, to touch on it again, tough to stop an offense like that.
Yeah, that's Baylor, that's Oregon. These teams are going so quickly to the line of scrimmage, and the explosiveness of spreading you out horizontally as well as vertically, and the big play capabilities. But it all starts with the quarterback, and he is a special one. And this league has special quarterbacks, but his ability to run and throw really sets him apart. And this is the biggest game in his career and biggest game in the history against the University of Hawaii defense.
Yeah, now on the flip side of things, Hawaii did have a special performance by their quarterback and, of course, receiver Chris Gant. Schroeder with 6 touchdown passes. Gant, on the end of 4 of those, Rich, UH did a nice job of moving Chris Gant around the field.
Yeah, this is called the Cadillac route. They're clearing you out on one side and they're running across on an over route on the other side, and really well designed by the Hawaii coaches and the Hawaii offensive staff. But you're right, they're playing him at the X receiver. They're playing him at the Z receiver. Their splits are wide, their splits are tight. And when you have a weapon like that, you want to make sure that the defense can't just double him and take him away. So they're trying to move him up and get mismatches. And he's really been a mismatch against anybody he's played this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, moving along, Army comes to town next. The Cadets are 3-7 on the season. They're led by a very familiar name and face to Hawaii fans, Rich Ellerson.
Yeah, and Rich Ellison, the people that know him well, he's one of the best defensive pass rushing coaches in the country, but he's become a great head coach. He has a long history with Army. He has a military background. He has a background in Hawaii. You got to love the guy. He's got the tenacity, and these guys are going to be ready to play because this is their last game as well. And with the military appreciation and along with the military presence in Hawaii, this is going to set up for a great finale.
Yeah, Army leads the nation with 330 yards rushing per game. Their running back, Terry Badgett, he ran for 304 yards in a win against Eastern Michigan.
And we've seen Hawaii play Navy, so they've had a week or so to practice against the triple option, but they weren't very impressive, so hopefully they'll be better. They'll need to be. This team is not as talented as Navy. They don't have the dynamic quarterback that Navy has, but the running back is nice, and the precision of this offense, if Hawaii doesn't tackle, if Hawaii isn't responsible, it's going to be a long day, and you don't want to end up 0-12. So they've been must-wins all along, but this one is a must-win.
Hey, speaking of the military academies, Navy, they had a big game. They played a Mountain West team. Let's take a look at what they did as we look around the rest of the Mountain West.
Quick first step defense.
A 49-42 victory over Army helped Hawaii avoid an imperfect season, but perhaps no game displayed a wider range of emotion than the one that we witnessed Saturday night. Aloha and welcome in to another edition of Rainbow Warriors Inside the Huddle. I'm Mike Cherry alongside Rich Miano and Mark Carpenter. Unique, tragic experience that, like we said, very emotional. Let's show you how it all went down in tonight's opening drive. Now, before the game began, images of Wilson's memory would line the players' helmets. You see the WW logos. Prior to kickoff, there was a moment of silence, perhaps one of the most powerful moments to have been in that stadium and to have it be so quiet. When it did begin, RB began with the ball, but not for long. Gerald Garcia Williams Jumping on the fumble, Hawaii takes over at midfield. And they'd run their first offensive play with just 10 men, also in honor of Wilson. Now, once the Bows put 11 on the field, you could tell they were inspired. Fifth play, Sean Schroeder, Scott Harding, 26-yard touchdown, Hawaii up 7-0. Next UH possession, Schroeder in a zone. He completed his first 5 pass attempts, his longest 42 yards to Billy Ray Stutzman. That would set up this. Play action to Marcus Lankilde. UH scores on its first 2 possessions, and they lead 14-zip. Yet despite the success, there were some bumps with the long ball. Third UH drive ends with an interception in the end zone, but Rich, Hawaii's defense, it was jacked in the first and did a great job of bending but not breaking.
Yeah, they recovered a fumble. They had 3 tackles for losses and 2 sacks. Ironically, the much maligned Hawaii defense is one of the nation's leaders in tackles for losses.
Yeah, no doubt the defense doing it for the offense, setting the tone. Eventually, though, Army's Angel Santiago and the Black Knights would find their stride, orchestrating a drive to end the first frame. Yeah, well, a lot of action there, and it didn't take long for Army to respond in the fourth, marching 75 yards in 6 plays, capped by an 11-yard touchdown run, making this a 1-possession game. And Rich, in the past, the Bows have gotten pretty stagnant when challenged, but not this time.
Yeah, this time they did a much better job in terms of responding to adversity. They've been a very resilient bunch, and this was important that they counter-punched back and try to go for the head and knock this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. They did that on the ground, and Schroeder capping it all off with a little improvising in for his second rushing touchdown of the season. Army, though, they were just a different team under Schur. He guides them to another score, 11 plays, 84 yards. Army within 49-42. Ensuing UH drive. Eats up 2 minutes. And here, a gutsy call. Harding avoids being tackled, but nails a perfectly placed kick, landing on the 5. Army, they had a desperation throw to end the game, but this will come up short. And after 11 winless games, the Rainbow Warriors finally find their first victory of the season. Better late than never. Here's your final score. Nearly a year to the day since Hawaii's last win, the Bulls hold on for the 49-42 victory. It snaps the second longest losing streak in UH history. Iosefa and Lakalaka both went over 100 yards rushing. The first time in 4 years that 2 rushers have gone over the century mark. Here's Coach after the game. Bows racked up 285 rushing yards, a vast improvement from only 23 in the season opener. Army came into Halava, leading the nation in rushing at 330 yards a game, but they fell about 80 short. Now, despite how many points the defense did allow, that was still a testament to the UH defense, correct?
Yeah, and I think it helped them to play Navy earlier in the season in terms of the triple option, but they did. They stopped the nation's #1 running team. To keep them 80 yards below their average was a heck of a job. And again, Willis Wilson was looking down from above, but the coaching staff did a great job and should be credited with a good game plan.
Yeah, just worthy of mention, John Hardy Tuliao, a team-high 9 tackles, and Tavita Lataimua, first start, 8 tackles and a sack. So again, everybody getting even distribution from all the way around. We can't not talk about the running attack. Again, we talked about Iosefa and Lakalaka. Again, key. They really helped milk the clock and lead Hawaii's offense and set the tone.
Yeah, and this is the first time in many years that they've had 2 backs over the century mark. So for Noam Chow and his staff.
Now, with the season complete, there's obviously been a lot of heat on the coaching staff, but give credit where credit's due. They have helped set the foundation, I have to believe, for success next year.
Yeah, Chris Demarest, I mean, Demo, special teams-wise, to me, they've been special all season.
Of course, Hawaii's motivation was to get their first win of the season, but there was a ton of it to go around. They were at no loss for the loss that they suffered Saturday morning. And of course, we're talking about the death of running back Willis Wilson. The young man's life cut short at the age of 21 in an apparent drowning at Sandy's. Players, for the most part, heard about their fallen teammate when they woke up for breakfast. Somehow they mustered up the courage and energy to focus on the task at hand simply because Willie would have wanted it that way.
It was so unexpected, you know, this morning we're going to take our walk and we heard the news and